Hello again, I'm Mike, and this is Keepers of the Word. Today's topic is the physical and the mental with special guest John Thor Kempf from Kempf Fitness Professional YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me, John.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. I'm excited for this conversation. It's going to be a good one.
Definitely. So, what spiritual path would you say you go down?
I definitely gravitate towards yoga because it is the path that I found right around the synchronistic time of my awakening, and it has absolutely changed my life, man. And what people think of yoga, it's so much more. It's so much different than the poses that you see in an American yoga class. Yoga is union, and that is really the summary of everything that I try to encompass in my work and embody in my practice.
So you would say the union of the body, the spirit, and the mind, the mental henosis, right?
Yeah. Henosis. Yeah. Henosis means universal oneness or mystical union. And that word came to me in 2016, 2017. I was just sitting in meditation and got that kind of like echo henosis. I'm like, what is that? And I Googled it and I was like, what? No way. Ancient Greek word. I'm already really interested in and connected to Greek mythology and all of that space. And it's really the ancient Greek word for yoga. Yoga meaning to yoke or union. And I love the visual analogy of yoga in the sense that a yoke in the old times in India, a yoke is what they would use, the actual technology, the device that is a T-shape to allow the two oxen, which represent the masculine and the feminine energies, to move at an even rate. There's a great line, when the two become one, and the yoke allows the two oxen to move the plow. It creates a fourth new object that sustains life, nourishes you. It creates food, the plow. So union of the mind, the body, and the spirit, union of the masculine and the feminine energies, union of traditional wisdom and modern technology. I really feel that my work in the world is to ride the line, have one foot on, even in college, personal trainer, strength coach, one foot over here with the meatheads and the bodybuilders lifting weights, seeing all those guys. I'm like, man, these guys really could use yoga and that would help them get injured less. And then I see the yogis over here on the mats stretching and neglecting strength training and how they lack stability and how that shows up in a lack of structure and stability in the mind and in your life. And so I really see how yoga is this practice of unification, bringing together all these different parts and pieces of ourselves and embodying that in our life.
How did you get introduced to yoga?
So funny, man. So the quick backstory to this, the quote by Lao Tzu, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And one of my favorites a lot of people miss the last piece of that quote. When the student is truly ready, the teacher will disappear because you're the teacher, Yeah. And so I went down 10 years of a dark rabbit hole due to a lot of trauma in my childhood. And I was rock bottom in college, dropped out, drinking and partying, you name it. I was that guy. I was the tool of the century. And then I randomly, recreationally took some mushrooms with friends in college for the first time. No intention behind it whatsoever, having a good old time. And then the come down, we're all kind of just introspectively coming down by ourselves. And I was laying on the couch and my inner being, my higher self came in, and it wasn't a visual experience, but very audible. That's how it comes through for me. And it was basically, what the fuck are you doing? Get your life together. You've got shit to do. Put your pants on, man. And I was like, what? I really took it seriously. And over the next 2-3 months, I started journaling. That's been a huge, huge practice for me and something that I teach my clients, and I provide structure in that process to bring clarity to what do I want and why do I want it? And then from the journaling, the other major piece was cleaning up my diet. Being a strength and conditioning coach, personal trainer, I had the fitness thing down. I've been training since I was 13. Love it. It's always been something that's been therapy for me, but also a passion. Movement itself is fascinating for me. But then after cleaning up my diet and getting clear about what direction I wanted to go by having some introspective, what direction I wanted to go, my employer at the rec center, the manager of the personal training staff, I'm just working out one day and he walks up to me at the gym and he goes, "Hey, you want to teach yoga? We'll certify you for free through the rec. And then you can teach the classes. We want to try to bring more men into the yoga space." And they literally called it broga. I was the first male yoga teacher. And it was funny because still it was mainly only females that went to the class. But I, at the time, was like, oh, cool. I'll get paid to do physical therapy. I was bodybuilding at the time and rehabbing some injuries that I sustained playing semi-professional football. And so I was like, cool, I'll get paid to do some rehab. And then fast forward 6 months, I go through a one-on-one teacher training with Joanne Green. Shout out. Love you, lady. She really helped me there. And 6 months later, I'm teaching a class and I'm cueing to the class, but I'm detaching from my physical body and kind of witnessing myself from above, looking down, observing myself teaching the class, but not from the perspective of my body. And that was just the moment where I was like, holy shit, there's something to this.
You're on the path.
I'm more curious now. And that's dove me down the rabbit hole of the last 10 years. That was 2013. So I've been teaching now for 9 years and practicing. And it's just been a journey of unfolding, a journey of breaking down all of the layers of ego and callousness that I had built in defense of what I had experienced to try to be tough and toughen it out. So yoga has been a journey back to the heart for me, a softening, right, 18-inch journey from the head to the heart.
Do you think a lot of men have that problem? I know I do. I know I do a lot. The toughness, the stoic man. And for me, it's been hard to reveal the inner workings of the onion, I guess. Mm-hmm. My wife, I give her all the credit because she's helped me a lot with that, but it's still very hard. How do you get to the core of it all? And I don't want you to reveal any secrets or anything like that. It's proprietary, but I'm very curious.
Well, you know as well as I do, man, there is no secret. It's the basics. And one of my greatest qualities, this is beautiful because I just touched on this today, humility. You have to, and this, I think, and this is really a lot of the work that I do now. I was the guy that made fun of people that ate vegetables and, you know, woo woo. I poked fun at all of that. And now it's been a journey of really softening into the heart. And by doing that, now I'm having all of these incredibly beautiful experiences, and I'm so much more attuned to my nervous system and the guiding light of my intuition. The information that I receive in my being is so uncanny, man. It's so accurate. It's stories that you wouldn't believe. Like I would go back and tell myself 10 years ago, I'd be like, you're full of it, man. Like downloading information about events that were going to transpire in the future with just ridiculous precision and accuracy, laughable synchronicities and all of these things. But that only came from a willingness to die. And that, I think, is what encompasses the work that I do now, coaching men, and what I think is such a pivotal piece that we've lost as that tribal initiation into manhood is really, it's a willingness to die. And the dying is a metaphor for letting go of a part of yourself that you know. There's a great quote by Paul Selig, a good friend and channel of mine. And I release all that I know to become all that I am. And the ego attaches to what is known, what is familiar. Even if it's not good for you, at least you know what you can expect out of that outcome. And to die is to surrender to the unknown. And that takes balls, man. That takes a level of humility to accept that you're not there, and that you're never going to get there all the way. In that sense, there's more work to do, and you have to die, you know, getting married, you have to, your freedom has to die, you know, to a degree, or at least the ego thinks that. And then you actually realize like those commitments are actually what bring more freedom and so on. But that ego death, you have to be willing to let go of who you are, who you think you are, to become who you really are, who you want to be.
Well, the humility part is, I mean, we could all say, well, I can laugh at myself. But when it really happens, or when you're really in that moment, can you? The ego is a tricky piece of oneself. It's the part that makes you second guess, and I don't like doing that. I've had a lot of bouts with my ego. I want to say the last 5 or 6 years, been treating myself to practices that help me bring down those walls, get rid of the ego. You can never get rid of it all the way. And sometimes you do need it. You know, you do need it for certain things. And it's one of those love-hate things, right? But I do follow you on the humility part. I feel if I were to tune into that a little more, I'd probably drop some more. So I'm going to take you up on that. So Thor, why did you choose Thor out of all the gods in the world? Well, maybe one, because you kind of look like the guy. If we go from the Marvel version, right? But what made you choose Thor?
It's such a funny story, because as I learn more about who I am, one of my favorite quotes, "Know thyself." It's always there, man. It's always there. You go back and like, fuck, it was there even when I was a kid, you know. But because I grew up in an environment that was unstable and unsafe, I witnessed a lot of pain, and I'm very sensitive to energy, and when I witness other people in pain, I can take pain really well. In fact, there's a part of me that leans into that, because it's all sensation. Pain is an incredible teacher, and has really helped me in a lot of ways learn more about myself, know thyself. But witnessing others in pain is tough. That's one that's been tough for me. And so Thor's role is protector of humanity. And that's something that I adopt intentionally as a part of my character, because I've always been someone to protect the weak and stand up for injustice. And I really like the bold persona and comical personality of Thor in the Marvel series. And funny enough, in college, I saw the movie and it came out. I was playing semi-pro football at the time, and I had a buzzed head. And I had just decided, oh, that's who I'm going to be for Halloween next year. I'm going to start growing out my hair. And it was just that simple. But then as the years have evolved, it just really is more and more of my own true character. And the really bold, and sometimes like overly bold, and like if and you see it, it's so funny. You can see this in my human design chart and my gene keys, where strength is there, but with force, physical force, it's like square peg round hole, breaking things, breaking myself, like all this dumb shit, you know, breaking glasses or whatever. And so it's like kind of comical that I resonate with that character. And the other side of that is I have a Norse background. I have a Norwegian ancestry. And
well, there you have it.
Yeah. It's in my blood, man. It's like the first time I threw an axe, I hit the bullseye. I threw a spear. I threw javelin in high school, shoot a bow. You know, it just is like that.
Did a man with one eye appear at any point in time?
Well, and that is the last piece I wanted to touch on. There is Odin. Odin is the the character, he's like the Zeus in a sense for the Norse gods.
Correct.
And everything about Odin is so that actually in truth, Odin is what resonates with my soul as like who my inner character is, of like who I really am. I resonate with Odin the most, and Thor is how I show up in the world. But the Allfather, that's like my inner spirit, and the correlations between Odin and some of the other deities and the other religions, and the interesting information about at the esoteric level of like who Odin represents is just uncanny in the synchronicities of my spiritual journey. So the whole thing is just so fitting, man.
I think it's cool that you intertwine all these different paths in your path. What would you say is the part that motivates you the most?
As far as what motivates me on my life journey in this body at this time is the potential of humanity, man. We have all the tools right here. We are such an incredibly advanced piece of technology, and we're coming around to a lot of these truths that were known thousands of years ago in all of the different religions and spiritual texts. Qigong, Tantra, Kriya Yoga. These are practices that resonate with me, and I'm this guy that's like in the middle, and I see like those guys over there doing the same thing these guys are doing over here, but thousands of years apart across the world. But it's the same thing with the same intention, just different words. And then you see people like Joe Dispenza now using the language of science to unify these cultures and these ideas. And it's like, oh, it's all the same thing.
It's the same frequency.
And so if we can access that and use the power of the mind and tap into some of these ancient truths, the Hermetic principles and universal law, what limit do we have? And when you find something that inspires you, I love the quote, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world surely needs is more people that have come alive, living their passion, on fire for whatever it is, whether it's gardening, nature, art. And I think when you find those passions, you just, no matter what it is, you're going to keep doing it because you enjoy it. And I love the quote, do what you love and love what you do. People ask me, what's the best meditation practice? The one that you like, because that's the one you're going to do. And any of them work. If you do it enough, it's just keep doing it. And you're going to do the ones that you like. So find what you enjoy and then just practice that. Let mastery naturally express through you. Embody it by doing what you love.
You know, I think collectively, us humans consciously are starting to really understand all these paths coming together now. And like you said, you know, it's just a different version of what is being spoken. They could have been thousands of years apart, but it's kind of the same thing. I think there's a huge awakening happening at the moment. It's not fully there yet, but a lot of people I've noticed don't really follow traditional religion anymore. They feel that it's too constricting, and there's more freedom in spirituality. There's more purpose in spirituality because you feel it's your purpose. It's your purpose to give, is your purpose to serve, rather than, going by these specific rules that you have to follow, or you don't get into heaven, or whatever that may be. Right. And I'm not trying to put anybody down, but there's just certain aspects of certain religions that just don't make any sense to me. And the fact that we haven't questioned them for millennia, you're stuck. Right. So I really do agree with you. I feel we as the human race, at some point, we're all going to realize that we're all human, regardless. The only thing that separates us is culture. And even that is beautiful. And when we're able to share our cultures, together, that is probably one of the most beautiful things we can do. And I look forward to that in our future. Going back to the meditational practices. So I've started breath work, and this morning I was looking at your page and noticed that you're talking about the elevator breath, right? And the movement of the body in that area. Where did you learn that?
I'm so glad we came to this, because I was like exactly what was ruminating next in my mind, just to like tie that piece in. Studying the passion that I have is understanding and utilizing this human technology to the fullest of its potential. And I believe that we have before, as a species, or even as a subsect of the human species, maybe just a particular aspect of a certain society, uncovered a lot of these truths. And when you look at, in Hawaii, I live in Maui, and there's an ancient practice called ulu, and it's the movement of energy up the spine from the pelvis to the crown. In yoga, they would call this kundalini.
Yes.
In qigong, they would call it moving the qi up the dantians, refinement of the qi, you know? So these, and what I love is I'm like, oh, well, that's the same thing as that, and dissecting, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own, use your words in your time and space to resonate with your culture on these things that are timeless truths. And instead of calling it qigong, or calling it yoga, or calling it ulu, or calling it whatever the term is, this type of, oh, it's ujjayi breath versus pranayama breath versus kriya breath. It's practicing breath. So let's just extract that general principles, you know, breath, practicing breath. All the cultures talk about, there's something there, breath being related
to your
soul. Spirit. Yes, exactly. Breath is spirit, the ha in the Hawaiian culture, the breath of life. And there's this beautiful practice where you actually share the breath with another by placing your foreheads together and breathing. And it's an exchange of spirit. And all these cultures have something relative to the breath. All these cultures have something important to say about movement. They call it Tai Chi or asana, but it's moving the body. There's something important about putting your body in certain positions and moving this meat suit and making the things move so it functions optimally. There's something about stillness. So breath, movement, and stillness are three practices that I teach people how to incorporate into their daily life. Now, if you resonate with this one versus that one, cool. Try all the flavors of ice cream. Go back for seconds on the one that you like. But the main key point, the principles is we got to move our body. We got to breathe intentionally. We got to sit in stillness. Those do things to our body, to our mind, and to our spirit. Those three aspects of this human experience. And there's more there, like journaling, for example, another beautiful practice of introspection and reflection, and some other things that you can do, visualization and grounding, earthing, connecting with nature is something that I really preach. I think that's just so vital and so easy. That's one of the lowest hanging fruit. Go stand on the earth barefoot for 10 minutes. The clinically studied, peer-reviewed research, piles of data. There's 15 peer-reviewed research studies that show massive decreases in inflammation, regulation of the autonomic nervous system, downregulation of the sympathetic, upregulation of the parasympathetic, coherence of your frequency with the Schumann resonance of the earth, which then turns on all these parasympathetic responses and calms the body. Sunlight. I mean, like, we have gotten so disconnected. Eyes, face, skin, getting sun on our body. All of these things are so easy to implement, but do it how you want. It's just taking the principles and applying them. So bringing that back to the breath, direct experience. Intellectualism is often a common cover-up for the fear of direct experience, Carl Jung. You do the practice long enough, you learn. It teaches you. The practice teaches you. Your body teaches you. The teachings, I say this all the time, the teachings are in the body. And the cells hold the information of the entirety of the universe within them. They have the entirety of memory within the DNA of our bodies. And so if we can actually get those things moving, epigenetics is the study of how the genes express this information based on different environmental triggers. External would be sunlight, water, food, so on. Internal would be thoughts, feelings. If we can get these certain environmental triggers to express our genes, to unlock, to open these pockets of information, we will get, that's where people say, oh, I got this download. You did this thing that opened up this packet of information that then you integrate over time. And that's a big piece of all of this work too. Grounding practices, bringing that information down. If you can't bring it down and apply it in your real life, then what's the point of it anyway? But it's actually allowing that information to unfold within you because it's already all there. So moving, breathing, sitting in meditation, connecting in nature, like the sun and the trees and the ocean, as funny as it sounds, I was that guy who would have been like, who's this dude? Now those are my greatest teachers, man. I go to the beach and I sit there and it's like, ooh, and I'm like, they're all talking to me at the same time and information's coming in, but I'm somehow able to understand all these streams of consciousness, of information. And it's a processing game and an integration time where it just over time you ruminate and like, and you just start making connections, and that direct experience, I think, is like at a point when the student is truly ready, the teacher disappears. Like you got to put down the book. You could read every book you want on learning how to swim. And guess what? It ain't going to teach you a damn thing about swimming until you get in that water, and you got to start swimming, and you're going to suck at first, 4 stages of competence. You're going to drown a little bit. Eventually you start figuring it out. And then now we can go and get in the water, not even think about it. And we swim naturally because it's already inside of us. So the practice will naturally teach you if you just keep doing it. Some structure, some stability, research first, always research, get a baseline, figure out where other people have brought this information to, start there, and then apply. N equals 1. You're just going to have to fail and fail and fail and tinker, the great experiment, where the scientist and the lab rat at the same time. And the ability, like what we talked about, the humility is being able to try and fuck up and know that the failure is actually what's necessary to teach you what you need to learn. So then you can come back from the lab rat to the scientist and go, oh, I fed it cheddar cheese and he got diarrhea. Okay, well, let's not do that again. Oh, Swiss cheese. Okay, he got through the maze better. Okay, let's do Swiss cheese. And then what can we add with the Swiss cheese? Well, if we do this breath technique while we're sitting in the sun, we can get a synergistic effect. Oh, that felt really good. Okay, let's do that for 21 days. Come back, talk to me. How'd that feel? And then like, oh shit, like my clients teach me because I just give them some principles to go play with. And then they come back and be like, oh, when I breathe here, it does this. But when I breathe here, it does this. So it's just a matter of trying things out. But that flow of breath is one of the things that they talk about in a lot of the cultures. The breath starts in the lower dantian, in the cauldron, in the belly, in the balls, and it moves up the spine. And from a physical material perspective, it starts in the lower diaphragm. And then as you breathe, it starts to fill up outward into the lungs and then up to the top. And energetically, you're breathing up and then returning the loop back down through the energy channels down into the lower dantian. You're creating this microcosmic orbit. So the elevator breath is actually just a physical somatosensory cue to get people to understand with the mind, the movement of the energy. Right. Exactly. Because the breath is just the movement of the energy. And once you can control the movement of the energy with the mind, you can actually detach from the breath and move. You can hold your breath and still feel that experience of the energy moving up and down. And then you add different elements. You add the loop, the microcosmic orbit. Then you start adding a clockwise spiral to the movement of the breath as it's going around the loop, and so on and so on and so on. It's just more and more layers that come through as you practice. But it just starts with, dude, just sit down and breathe for 5 minutes. The first thing I teach people always, 4-part breath. There's 4 phases to the breath. Most people don't even know that. And that elevator breath is actually the first video of the breathing meditation course in my men's group that I put on YouTube as a kind of a public teaser. And then from there, the 4-part breath is really, there's an inhale, a pause, an exhale, and a pause. Those are the 4 phases of the breath. And in yoga, Kriya Yoga, they would add the cycle of life to the cycle of the breath. Sa, ta, na, ma, birth, life, death, rebirth, next breath. So every breath is a cycle of life, man. And so that process of just noticing how, wow, there actually never is a pause. There's always those 4 phases, no matter how long each phase is, there's always an inhale, a pause, an exhale, and a pause. And so just like that's like, sit with that for a month, like that alone will take you so far. So it's beautiful to just sit with these practices and allow them to teach you.
I think, in conjunction with what you said, the breath itself, the breath is something that gives you life. You had life before when you're in the womb, but when you come out and you take your first breath, that's your own first breath. And that breath stays with you till you die. And that breath is your life. It doesn't stop. It keeps you going. For me, my experience is I've tried the Kundalini, and I love Wim Hof. That's my go-to. That's my thing. But I started paying attention to my actual movement, right? And when I saw your video on the elevator breath, I was like, dude, that's it. It made sense right there, because I felt like I needed to push myself, my spine, the fluid in my spine up, right, to get to the pineal gland. And that's when you start to feel a little woozy and weird, but you also feel energized. You feel powerful, right? You feel like you're going to pass out, but you also feel really, really good. And I feel also holding your breath, and that part where it starts to course your veins are just pumping and pumping, trying to get every ounce of oxygen into your system. That is a moment that a lot of people do not experience, and they should, because it puts you in ultimate focus. I think right now, today, with these in our hands all the time, we're staring at the black mirror, and we're always trying to get that fix, right? But if you were to take at least 10 to 15 minutes of your time and really breathe, like really focus on your breath, it sets a tone for the rest of your day, especially in the morning. That is for me now, it's a ritual. I have to do it. If I don't do it, I feel lost the rest of the day. And I feel like, okay, well, tomorrow's another one, and I got to do it. So I really resonate with the elevator breath, and I'm glad we could both kind of, yeah, you too. You know what I mean? It's one of those moments, you know what I mean? So what would you say your ikigai, your purpose right now in life is?
Yes, dude.
I'm just hitting them all, huh?
Oh, yes. Ultimately, I use this as a framework I call it the Henosis Blueprint. And there's a quote by Jim Rohn I love. When do you build a house? When it's finished. It took me so long to get that, but he uses the great idea as, I'm going to build a house. You don't just get up and go into the middle of a field and start laying bricks on the ground. Someone comes and asks you, what are you doing? You're like, I'm building a house. You're like, how many rooms? I don't know. What materials is it going to be made out of? Oh, fuck. I don't know. I haven't thought that far. The first time you build it is in your mind, and creating a blueprint of what you want is your intention to call in. And it's just as if you had a contractor, they'd be like, okay, what kind of house do you want? What color rooms? How many bathrooms? Like the more clarity that you can create in your mind, the more you have the ability to ultimately, from the physiological perspective, the neuroscientific perspective, activate your reticular activating system to then GPS those things in your environment. I want a white Tesla. I want a white Tesla. Oh my God, I'm seeing white Teslas everywhere. They always were there. I guess to a degree, that's pretty new, but the idea is that it's always been there, but now you're attuned, aligned to the frequency of that thing, that experience that you're calling in. So for me, I think it's so important to get clear about what do you want and why do you want it. And the ikigai is really just the expansion of what we were talking about earlier. First of all, do what you love what you do. Passion. That's one of the 4 for ikigai. And then skill is really, to me, what is cultivated by repetition of your passion. Eventually, no matter what you love, if you keep doing it, you'll get good at it. And once you get good at it, then you start to formulate a way in which you can use that skill to serve other people, because the greatest way to pay yourself or to receive reciprocation is to serve others. And so if you can do something that you love and get good at it and find a way to make that thing help other people, that's going to put money in your pocket. And that's the profit piece of the fourth part of Ikigai. So for me, I'm so passionate about this inner technology, and I love studying these old wizards, these old sages, all the way back to Atlantis, and following from there to the book, for example, Autobiography of a Yogi, which is a great entry point for anybody interested in yoga, talking about these old yogic sages that were doing what we would consider magic, which all of the occult masters back in the day that had mastery over this inner technology would just say, that's just science. That's just science at a level we haven't discovered yet, or at least we're getting there now. And then again, it goes back to the cool, it's in the book. How do you actually express that, embody that through application, through trial and error, through practice, practice, practice? That's the mastery part. So for me, the passion is exploring the potential of the human organism and practicing until I become a master, learn, master, and teach. That's the process that I've been going through of, and as you teach, you become more of a master, because you learn when you teach and you teach when you learn. So the process for me now at this point is to teach other people these things that have absolutely transformed my life. Like I said, I was like the absolute classic example of the tool that was just like the ultimate Chad. And like now, like I'm the hippie that lives in the woods and grows a garden and does yoga every day, but I still embody strength training. I get in the cold plunge, like I do hard things. I do uncomfortable things. I meditation to a degree, as Alan Watts would say, is actually, it's not something that you do. Meditation is a state that you become, and it's something that you should enjoy, because otherwise it's an obligation. But side tangent on meditation, but ultimately I want to teach other people how to access their full potential by the utilization of these simple practices and skills and tools that we have access to now more than ever in the modern age. Like, you can get a sauna, you can get a cold plunge, you can buy kettlebells online, you can watch YouTube videos and learn how to meditate. There's binaural beats that will help downregulate your nervous system and drop you into an alpha theta state, so your brain is more impressionable and lucid, and you can access higher states of consciousness. Plant medicines are another incredible tool when used appropriately. Just like all tools, it's the use of the tool that's the important piece. And so giving people an opportunity to not only learn about, but practice and integrate and embody these tools and skills, so they can then go out and access mastery and achieve their Ikigai, is what will change the world. The greatest gift you can give to humanity is your own realization. Ramana Maharshi, one of my greatest teachers, yogic sage, man, absolute wizard. And so the more that we work on ourselves by using these simple practices that work, the work works, then we all will come to these realizations. And this is something I wanted to mention because I think it's really fascinating. You mentioned the awakening, and there's a lot of texts and information that talk about this awakening, starting the end of the world, the Mayan calendar was the end of an era and the shift into this new state of consciousness that we've been moving into for the last decade and will continue to develop over the next century. I really see the evolution of society and education and how we function as a people. But this process is actually way more common than you think. Being someone that's really grounded in business and really, I love the mind. The mind is a wonderful servant. It's a poor master, but when trained and utilized, like Joe Dispenza says, you tame the horse, you tame the dog to sit. When you say sit, if you can get it to sit, then that dog will serve you. That dog will help you hunt and get the food. And so the mind is an incredible tool when mastered and used appropriately. But there are people that are so thirsty for this, and it's low key. It's still, people don't want to openly admit it. I was one of those guys. Now I'm like, guys, everybody's talking about this. Come on, can we just get on the bandwagon here? Because if you go back This was 2015, 2016. One of my friends who's a SEO, Google tech guy, really, really smart dude, he sent me the last 5 years. This was like 2012 to 2016 or something like that at this time period. The top 20 searches on Amazon over the last 5 years. So he gave me the top 100 searches over the last 5 years. I tallied them, man. There was over half of them. There was like 11 to 14 of them out of the 20 on every year since 2012. This is 10 years ago. Qigong, Kundalini, Tantra, meditation. People are so curious. Those are the top searches in the world. Because, and this is another great fact, over 50% of scientists in an anonymous survey reported paranormal experiences. We're talking about the most left-brained, validated, non-woo-woo people in the world. Over half of them have had paranormal experiences that they can't explain. So then people are going home. And I think really with the last couple of years, everybody went home and did their research and started Googling, wait, what the fuck's going on here? Wait a second. Whoa, that YouTube video. What? This thing does what? This plant medicine did what? They saw what? You read Autobiography of a Yogi. People are teleporting. People are levitating. People are manifesting precious stones out of their mouth and scents of flowers out of their hands on command. I mean, and these are surface level. These are child's play things of the potential that we can access with the human organism. So that is so inspiring to me. Like, to me, I'm one of those guys that's like I broke my arm last year. And when I broke it, I looked at it and I was like, I know that there's in the quantum field the potential possibility of I can mend that right now with my mind, but I'm not there yet enough because I was like, fuck, now I got to go to the hospital. But that's where I believe consciousness can go and is going, because everybody's low key actually talking about this stuff. And one of my greatest gifts is to make spirituality cool. Because like if Chad can do it, anybody can do it, truly, and like here I am now, and people that knew me then, I was the party animal of the century. And they're like, dude, I don't know what you're doing, but I can tell you are an absolutely different person. I know you're not faking it, because I was always that guy that was brutally honest and would just stand up for what I believe in. And now this I believe in more than anything. And I really think that when we start to access these higher levels of consciousness through these practices, everybody, they call it the awakening. Everyone's, Ken Wilber says it's the 4-stage process of wake up, clean up, grow up, and then show up. And the showing up is after we've done the work, we've done the healing, we've accessed these higher levels of potential that we all have within us to just on the simple level of utilizing our time and attention more efficiently throughout the day, just monitoring our social media time more by meditating and having better ability to direct our will and our focus power, and that's like, all the way to levitation, all the way up. So if there's anything that it inspires me the most, it's knowing that we have the ability to access these greater potentials. And if we do that individually, then collectively we can come together and create something just absolutely magnificent, man. And that's my ultimate goal. And what I see as my life's work through Kenosis is oneness. It's to bring the people together to experience this non-describable thing. It's beyond words. It's beyond comprehension, but you can feel it. And when you feel it, you can see someone else and touch your heart and go, yeah, I know, man. I know.
You could touch somebody's heart without speaking to them at that point.
Heart, dude, crazy quick story. Last year I went to Peru. We went to a women's foster home, teen youth, abused, kicked out of their home, ran away. And it was an incredible experience. I'm going back this year. This is something I'm really passionate about, is facilitating opportunities for the youth to heal and grow into their potential. And because of what I witnessed as a kid. And so that's the whole Thor thing, really passionate about, creating safe spaces for kids to grow without having to put on the 20 layers that I did. And we went into this foster home and all these kids are disconnected. And after a few hours, they're sharing their stories. Powerful, man. Kids like, wow. And they're like, I want to go to college. I want to be a famous singer one day. And these kids have just seen the worst of the worst. And you're like, oh my God. And us facilitators as a group, we have a retreat that we do. We go down there and we raise money for them. And we're looking to send them to school and fund sustainable initiatives that help them, create an opportunity for them to get educated and build a life. And so by the end of it, they're all kind of disconnected when we got there, kind of cliquey. By the end of it, they're all in the middle of the circle, hugging and crying and holding each other like family, familia. And all of us facilitators are around in a circle, just holding space for them. And I didn't tell my story. A lot of the other facilitators told their story as a way to inspire these kids. Like, hey, I went through that too. Really rough. Now I came out the other side. It made me better. And now I'm helping other people, because of my story. And the kids were like inspired by that. I didn't share my story about sexual abuse and growing up in a broken home, but heart transcends language, man. I was standing there in Wuji, just sending heart energy to these kids silently the whole time. And they're all in a circle crying at the end. And there's some footage of this and it's just, oh man, it's raw. It's super emotional. And they all like in the same moment in a team huddle, they're like whispered together and they broke huddle and they all ran over to me and surrounded me and hugged me and just started bawling. And I fucking lost it. I mean, ugly face crying, like just weeping on these girls' heads, and they're just holding me because they knew, man. And everybody there knew they knew without knowing my story or nothing. Everybody knew. And we walked away. I felt like somebody just fucking ripped my rib cage open, man. It was just the heat, the raw vulnerability of that energy. It was one of the most healing experiences. Everybody just walked out of there silently, wide-eyed, like, wow, that's love, man. And that, like, if we can create spaces for those kids to come together and do that healing, and then from there, they go out and act on their inspirations. All the ideas, all the solutions for all the problems we're facing are here. We've got it all. The resources, the ideas, the opportunities are here. If we can ground down, do the work here, express and embody these practices that will bring forth these opportunities to heal and grow, we can transform the world in a year, in a decade, and that process will take time for that to carry through the next century, but it can happen overnight.
We need to get it started.
That happened.
We need to get it going. So the Henosis retreat, the Henosis that you do, I think it's I don't want to explain it for you, but
sure.
I want to know more about this Henosis thing you got going on.
Yeah, man. So that it's perfect because this leads me to, to come full circle on my magnum opus, my life's work, my dharma, my purpose here within this vessel. The opportunity that I believe I have is to create an actual physical locations for those people who are resonating at that frequency and have the desire to live in harmony with nature, with each other, and with themselves and with their creator, whoever that may be, that transcendent cause beyond themselves. My desire is to create retreat centers, to create facilities and spaces where people can come and learn how to do that and then practice it in a safe container. And so this work that I'm doing now with the Henosis Foundation's course is a 6-month online course for men, and specifically for men because this is something that's evolved over the last few years of working with men. I really feel that that's my calling now, is to help the men collectively create stability in their life so they can create those little mini spaces in their families and in their communities. But my larger vision is to create my own physical location. And the first being out here on Maui is what I feel is going to transpire. And once the business model is sound and profitable, then it's just a matter of replicating that model all around the world and building multiple little nodes where people can go to heal and to grow, and then to go forth from there and transform the world in their own ways, in their own careers, in the corporate world, and so on. So this first piece of it is the 6-month online course for men to learn these foundational practices of breathing, movement, stillness, journaling, connection with nature. And I was a kinesiology major, exercise science, strength and conditioning, nutrition, movement, functional movement. Like, I'm one of the biggest nerds you'll ever meet. I'm a Virgo, so I'm like robotic with this stuff. I just store information and I sponge it in. And I love organizing it and linearizing it in some kind of sequential procedural way, a process that can be repeatable for others. And I've demonstrated that over and over with countless clients. And so this experience is 6 months of learning those foundational principles and doing so in an online community that I have. The platform's called Circle. I use that for the community space. And then I use my online training app to deliver the program materials. And then we come together in person for a 5-day retreat out here on Maui. And we practice Qigong, we swing kettlebells, we work with the force mitts, we're working some boxing, it's both the masculine expression and the feminine expression. We sit, we breathe, we meditate, we journal. There's a water ceremony, fasting is involved. So we work hard and we rest hard and we play hard and we go within. So it's that learning of the balancing of the two energies. And from this container, my goal is, as this business model develops, to then create another online course that would be in certification for yoga teachers and personal trainers. So after the 6 months of learning how to actually apply this foundational material in your own life, and you go, hey, this really transformed me. And I mean, for example, one of my best friends who lived out here, corporate world, down the rabbit hole, totally in need of these foundational practices, applied them, had an absolute life-changing moment, quit his job, moved out to Maui. Now he's a yoga teacher and a chef, and he cooks Ayurvedic food and helps the community to heal in his own way. And so that is the opportunity that I want to create next, is another program to build off of this one that actually creates careers for people that don't just want to practice, but then they feel inspired to take this on as their ikigai and actually teach others how to implement this material. And as that grows, this community will naturally foster a physical location where currently I rent out a retreat center here on Maui, and it's a beautiful jungle location, but my vision is much greater, and
have your own
a large facility that has all the bells and whistles, traditional wisdom and nature meets modern science and technology. So once that center is then built, then I can start running more community events and co-ed events, and then take that model and ultimately implement it all around the world. Kind of similar to Fit for Service. If you're familiar with Aubrey Marcus, I'm sure you are. He has a great working model that is similar to what I want to create, but just with the physical locations is the next step for me.
Right on, man. So how can people find you? Where do we find Thor and find all this information?
Of course, yeah. So if you're interested in the 6-month course, it's henosisfoundations.com. It's actually uncanny timing. I don't know exactly when this podcast is going to come out, but I'm doing enrollment right now for the next group. We have our retreat in January 16th to the 20th. I do quarterly enrollment. So this November, this first week, I'm literally onboarding the next group of guys right now. So if anybody's interested, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at Thor_Kempf, or you can find me on Facebook, John Kempf, and kfitnesspro.com is my online personal training platform. And you can find me there all over. Just Google Kempf Fitness Professional. You'll find hundreds of testimonials, and I'm all over the page of Google there. And yeah, those are the best places to find me, K-Fitness Pro and Henosis Foundations, and then social on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
I'll make sure I put all that information in the description when I post this. I should have this up by next week.
Sweet.
So do you think you have had your I've made it moment?
Great question. Wow, that's a good question. Yes and no, in the sense that I love a line by Abraham Hicks. You'll never get it done, but you can't get it wrong. You'll never get it done, but you can't get it wrong. So when I sit here, I can work myself to death. I could work 30 hours a day, as the joke that I was telling my friend the other day. I'm working and working and working because I'm passionate about creating these spaces and giving people the opportunity to transform. Because it's when you get to the end of the rainbow and you taste that magic, you have that direct experience, all you want to do is like, holy cow, guys, like, you got to try this ice cream. It's so good. But on the other side of it, like, dude, chill out. You're already there. Like, look outside, like I'm surrounded by nature, and it's just the nature here in the last 4 years has healed me more than probably anything in my spiritual path. Like just being around this beautiful energy and the plants and the sun and the ocean. And so when I'm like working and working, like for what? So you can retire on a beach? Like you're there, dude. Like relax and enjoy the ride more. That would be the best advice. So I do think that I've made it in that sense. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I know that because it feels so good in my heart. And my work is play. It's the I get up the same, I do the same stuff every day. You know, I get up and I keep working on the same things, and it's never going to get done. The to-do list grows. I do one thing, add two things, but it's okay because I love what I do and I'm surrounded by beauty. So I have more to do, but I'm already there, man.
Right on, brother. I think you got to that point a long time ago. You just never saw it, or you never took a step back and realized, all right, hey, I'm fucking here.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. And we as humans it's very hard for us to do so. Mm-hmm. And I think that question is something where it catches people by surprise, because again, the ego wants to not answer that question, you know? So it's one of those things. Do you have any questions for me?
What's been the most impactful practice, teaching, book, teacher, methodology for you in the most recent past that you feel inspired to speak on?
You know what? I've been immersing myself in reading a lot recently, and there's this book that there's this guy I met a while back at the South Pasadena Lodge, and I've been a fan of just him in general because the way he speaks and the way he talks. And he wrote this book called The Path of the Warrior Mystic, Being a Man in the Age of Chaos. Ooh. And it really spoke to me because it was very Book of the Five Rings, stoic and meditative at the same time, where masculinity is glorified, but not in the way that we normally think about masculinity being glorified. It's more of, and this quote that got me, and it got me good: resist the chaos. Resist the chaos, because we always want to run into it. We always want to go straight forward to it. But resist the chaos, because that's not where you belong. You belong in the peace. But our masculine energy wants the chaos sometimes. The ego wants the chaos. And by getting rid of or suppressing, because you never get rid of the ego, but you can put it in its place, you end up resisting that chaos, and you become more in peace and in tune and more. And I was able to look in myself and see that, you know, the warrior, the gardener, you know, the poet, they all coexist in one, right? And we just have to understand them, each facet of us. So I really recommend that book. It's by, again, Angel Millar, The Path of the Warrior Mystic, Being a Man in the Age of Chaos. That really is a good read, and I highly recommend it. If you ever get a chance, check it out.
I just wrote it down. That's fire, man.
So do you have any, we're at the end of the show. Do you have any shout outs you want to give to anybody?
If I were to give one shout out, it would be to Paramahansa Yogananda and the lineage of Kriya Yoga.
Self-Realization Fellowship.
Yeah, to Babaji and to Krishna and to Jesus and to Thoth and to those that dedicated themselves to resisting the chaos and stepping into their center. The center to me in that sense of the chaos is the eye of the storm. The storm is going on around you, but you're at total equanimity and peace within the center of it, and moving from your center. The storm moves around you, but you never actually enter that field of friction. And so those that are my greatest inspirations are those magicians and those masters that have dedicated themselves to understanding, knowing thyself. That's what I am most interested in on my own journey, is to find out and experience and access my truest, my highest potential. And that lineage and those teachers mentioned, those masters, are the ones that have inspired me most to just keep chopping the wood, man.
Right on, brother. I feel you on that. So that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you to Thor on this discussion in the mental and the physical. I hope this episode was beneficial to you. As always, thanks for listening to Keepers of the Word with Mike. If you enjoy the show, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel. Remember to tick the bell for notifications and be sure to come back for more topics and guests. Until then, this is Mike, and don't forget to always keep your word.